It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? The RCMP has arrested 5 land defenders on Wet'suwet'en territory as coastal gas link construction continues. Really important story. We've been hearing a lot of stories in the past few days about indigenous rights, so we are happy to hear one more story today. Now this is about a couple days old, and it is a continuation of unceded Wet'suwet'en territory and the sovereignty that they're trying to achieve. It says here that it's a 7-minute read. I haven't read it yet, so we're reading it together. The mood was somber at a Wet'suwet'en camp and village site near the confluence of Selk'e Kwe, Lamprey Creek, and Wedsin Kwa, Morris River, in the early afternoon on March 29th. A group of Wet'suwet'en chiefs, community members, land defenders, and their supporters wrapped up a debriefing meeting after 5 people were arrested and taken off the territory by the RCMP. Then someone cracked a joke and the mood lightened. It must annoy them to hear us laughing. Denise, hereditary chief, Namox chuckled. That morning, land defenders at the camp watched as a convoy of RCMP vehicles pulled up outside the fenced-off area, according to community members. More than a dozen officers filed through the gates and said they were there to conduct a search under a warrant issued by the BC courts. Land defenders told the Narwhal. So, of course, this is like really frustrating because this is actually the reason why I revoked my NDP membership, because I saw the government in BC, which is a NDP government, engaged in this type of neo-colonialism, and I thought to myself, well, if the NDP is going to do that, then what is the point of even trying to distinguish between them and the conservatives or the liberals? So I once upon a time gave $5 to the NDP, and a week later, the RCMP, under the authority of British Columbia, and at the behest of Coastal GasLink, removed Wet'suwet'en land defenders off their own land. And Jugme didn't say anything about it. Yeah, that is the thing, is that nobody said anything about it from the NDP. Like if I was Jugme Singh, who is also from British Columbia, or at least their riding is in British Columbia, I would just, you know what I would do? I would go to Wet'suwet'en, and I would talk to the land defenders and the media. And I would bring so much attention to that issue and say that the NDP as a brand does not condone that behavior. But there was nothing. There was no pushback from the NDP. It was really disappointing. I'm going to ask everyone to leave the area so we can conduct a safe search, an officer said, according to video footage shared with the Narwhal. Anyone who refuses to leave the area will be arrested for obstruction, he added, handing out copies of the warrant. I'm not going to tell you guys 17 times that you need to leave. Of course, staying silent is not an accident. It's on brand. And that's why I never donated again. Can't be a major party without having a I heart colonialism as a policy. Yeah, sadly. So, since this is unceded territory, why would you listen to somebody even if they told you 17 times that you need to leave? Maybe it's actually the RCMP and the courts of British Columbia that need to leave. And I'm sure they've been told more than 17 times. We need to talk to our lawyer, one land defender interrupted. No, that's not how it works, the officer replied. The land defender insisted they should be given 15 minutes to talk to their lawyer, to confirm the warrant was legit. That seems reasonable. But the officer said police were not equipped to provide any time. What? Sorry, we don't have the equipment to provide time. Okay. Like, you literally just have to do nothing. Staff Sergeant Chris Clark, Senior Media Relations Officer with the RCMP, told the Narwhal there was no obligation to provide access to legal counsel prior to the search. After a few seconds and a brief back and forth exchange, several officers moved in and started the arrests. Among those arrested and taken to the Houston, BC RCMP detachment was Jossie Alec, daughter of hereditary Chief Woos. Several hours later, after being released, she showed the Narwhal her wrists, marked and bruised from the zip tie handcuffs. She said the arresting officer initially put them on too tight, making her hands go numb. Another land defender said they were punched in the head while on the ground and showed a bruise on their right temple. Watches do provide time, River. This is true. They can tell you the time. Apparently, it's not a prerequisite to be part of the RCMP to be able to tell time. But it might be a prerequisite to have a proclivity towards violence, especially at the behest of colonization. Clark, with the RCMP's media relations, said he was unable to speak to specific allegations, but noted there are processes available for those who wish to file a complaint. According to an RCMP statement, 4 individuals were arrested for refusing to cooperate with police direction, and 1 for attempting to prevent officers from executing the warrant. Again, though, this is unceded territory. Like, they have no jurisdiction here. So what really is the point? If someone comes into your house and says that, I have a warrant that says you have to make me a sandwich, are you going to make them a sandwich? And they do actually have a copy of the warrant that they publish publicly here on Google Drive. I'm not sure if there's anything particularly revealing about it, but at least it is publicly available so that people can verify if this is the case. Any allegations of misconduct by the RCMP are taken seriously and will be investigated fully. Okay, so here we got lies. They don't take this shit seriously. Clark told the Narwhal in an email, "I can say that the search and arrests were captured on video, which will constitute part of the disclosure for court purposes." Yeah, internally, of course. Yeah, we're going to have an internal investigation. We've got our best officer on the job. Okay. We've got our highest paid member of the force on the job. Great. No such thing as crown land. I'm trying to get the perfect zoom here. The area, about 50 kilometers south of Houston, British Columbia, has been the site of numerous clashes between Wet'suwet'en land defenders, police, and industry workers building the Coastal GasLink pipeline. Now, this is like the same old story, right? It's very similar to the story that we've been hearing in Ontario with the Neskantaga First Nation doing their protest in the Ontario legislature. It's resource extraction, the interests of big business, the province, the police, and somehow the workers get roped into this as well because they don't really understand solidarity. But when we're in these austerity conditions, people need to feed their families, and if the only way they're going to feed their families, I guess, is by continuing this Canadian colonization project, then they can be coerced into being part of this movement against autonomous nations. The pipeline is being built to connect shale gas sources in the province's northeast with 2 liquefaction and export facilities in Kitimat LNG Canada, and Cedar LNG. It crosses about 190 kilometers of Wet'suwet'en territory. 5 of 6 elected band councils signed agreements with the company and the province in support of the project, but the hereditary leadership remains opposed. RCMP have made nearly 100 arrests over the past 4 years during conflicts related to the pipeline project. So again, another tactic out of the colonial playbook here is like, well, we have the support of some First Nations folks, but they don't conduct this business nation to nation, right? They subvert the indigenous traditional ways of governing their people in order to do what they want. According to the RCMP statement published following the March 29th arrest, the search was related to an incident that had happened a few days earlier, in which local police received a complaint from a coastal gas link security worker. The worker alleged a group of individuals wearing masks and camouflage fired flares and gained access to the work vehicle when the worker left the area because of the intimidation. At just before midnight on March 26th, the police statement added, these persons allegedly poured liquid onto the vehicle and stole a chainsaw from the truck bed. Oh no, liquid. What I think the kind of liquid is kind of important here. TC Energy, the pipeline operator, declined an interview request and referred the narwhal to the RCMP for more information. We are thankful that no one was injured during the incident. Okay. A TC Energy media spokesperson wrote in an emailed statement, we will continue to cooperate with the Houston RCMP in their investigation of this, and as always, we'll prioritize the safety of our work crews and communities around us. I do wonder if this courtesy extends to the First Nations communities. The search warrant, issued for theft under $5,000, noted the courts agreed with the Houston RCMP officer that a chainsaw, olive drab colored mask, and a pair of coyote brown fatigues had been stolen, and there were reasonable grounds to believe those items would be found at the Gidam 10 camp. Namox said he was not previously aware of the March 26th incident and questioned why anyone associated with Gidam 10 camp would have caused to steal equipment, noting the camp is outfitted with numerous tools. Why would anyone here steal a chainsaw? He said, pointing to a line of chainsaws in an outbuilding. The RCMP did not indicate whether they had retrieved any of the items during the search. That seems like kind of the most important thing when you're launching these allegations. It's like, well, we didn't find the murder weapon, but we locked them up. The results of the search are subject to the investigation, and no further details are being released at this time. Oh my goodness. According to the wording of the search warrant, the Gidam 10 camp is on Crown land. To Hereditary Chief Gizdewa, who drove out to the location when arrests were underway, it's a moot point. There's no such thing as Crown land in Canada, he told the narwhal in an interview. It belongs to us, the natives. In 1997, the Supreme Court of Canada affirmed the Wet'suwet'en never gave up their rights and title to the territory in a landmark case called Dalgamukwa Gizdewa. Versus British Columbia. Wow. Okay. And yeah, we know this. That's why it's called unceded Wet'suwet'en territory, because it is unceded. And yeah, here's a whole line of chainsaws. So very suspicious circumstances. Unlike previous RCMP raids on Wet'suwet'en territory, the enforcing officers were a mix of local police and members of the force's Community Industry Response Group, commonly called CIRG. The CERG is a special BC unit set up in 2017 to police opposition to industrial projects like Coastal GasLink. Okay, so it's like the colonial secret police. In 2019, the BC Supreme Court issued an injunction against anyone impeding construction of the pipeline, which set the stage for much of the police enforcement to date. However, the search and arrest were not an enforcement of the injunction. Okay, what? They weren't an enforcement of the injunction? Then what was it? It was really about the theft, the unproven theft. The Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, a federal watchdog agency responsible for responding to allegations of police misconduct, recently launched a systemic review of CERG. I don't know why can't they just be CERG? Including an examination of whether its actions are in line with standards and expectations of provincial and federal Indigenous rights legislation. Oh, thank goodness. Don't worry, everyone. We've launched a systemic review. And it turns out, yep, the police are bad and they infringe on the rights of Indigenous peoples. And of course, since we've launched this review of the system, a systemic review, you might expect that the system will change to ensure that these human rights violations will not continue. But somehow that just never seems to be the case. A spokesperson with the RCMP told the CBC the force is working cooperatively with the commission to make sure it has comprehensive access and a fulsome understanding of the CERG's policies, procedures, practices, guidelines, training, and deployments. My goodness. Adam Olson, a Green Party representative and member of Hartslip First Nation, questioned Mike Farnworth, BC Minister of Public Safety, about the RCMP unit in the Legislative Assembly shortly after the arrests were made. In his question, he referenced a recent government decision to allocate an additional $36 million to the task force. Premier David Eby. This is an NDP person. BC NDP. You know, this is why the NDP is useless. Like, the NDP is like, they just fund the police just like every liberal, every conservative. They're no different. Right now, this crew is rolling. And the minister knows this, on Indigenous people in their own territories as we speak, he said. The extent of human rights abuses and violations of Indigenous peoples on their own lands by this unit has not yet fully come to light. How does this government justify giving the controversial RCMP unit tens of millions of dollars? And will this BC NDP government stand this militarized police unit down while they're under this investigation? Farnworth said the police have a job to do. Fucking fire them then. Make it so that they don't have a job. It costs money to do that. We have to pay for the cost of the policing that takes place in the course of the enforcement of the injunctions. What if we didn't pay, though? RCMP enforcement in contraventions of UNDRIP, Indigenous leaders say. The RCMP operations were quickly condemned by human rights advocates and Indigenous leaders. Under the governance of their hereditary chiefs, the Wet'suwet'en are standing in the way of the largest fracking project in Canadian history. Today's raid constitutes a federal response to Indigenous defense of their land against this fracking project. Canadian Chief Stuart Phillip, president of the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs, said in a statement, "The rights of Indigenous peoples to live free of violence and intimidation in their own homelands must never be subjugated to the interests of fossil fuel companies." Gawazil Marilyn Slett, elected chief councillor of the Haltsuk Tribal Council, noted the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the rights of Indigenous peoples visited Canada in February and met with Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and land defenders, including Wu's daughter. His preliminary report after the visit raised the exact same concerns as we have raised again and again, that the criminalization of Indigenous human rights defenders is rampant and must be stopped. She said in a statement, "Today's raid is in contravention of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which both Canada and BC have passed legislation to implement, and is a gross display of the ongoing supremacy of the colonial military industrial complex." Slado Molly Wickham, a spokesperson for the Gidam 10 camp, said the police actions reflect a long history of injustice to Indigenous peoples. We do have a video, I believe, of Molly Wickham here.
Hey everybody, this is Slado. I'm calling to update you that about half an hour ago, Kidamden checkpoint is started being raided by SERG. Charney's there. We have confirmed that 5 people have been arrested and removed off of the territory so far. 14 Kurg vehicles pulled up to camp. The last couple days they've been, Forsyth has been walking around trying to get footage of the inside of camp. We've had our territory monitor program going, building trapline trails, and yesterday the police were out on the trails harassing those people. So it's been a lead up, but all of a sudden this morning they pulled up with 14 cars and they're basically just doing a clear sweep of the entire camp, arresting everybody. So people are barricaded down in structures, trying to avoid the police. They're there trying to get into the structures. It's unclear how many more people, if other people have been arrested so far, but their intention, I believe, is to go in, sweep clear of camp, destroy camp like they've done before. So we're very concerned. Our chiefs and our matriarchs and our supporters are on their way out to camp right now to ensure everybody's safety and to see what the hell is going on. But we want to keep you updated. As soon as we find out information, we're going to be letting you know that 44 Camp Kidamden checkpoint is under attack right now by Kurg. The illegitimate pipeline mercenaries are arresting people right now as we speak.
Pipeline mercenaries, that's a perfect way to put it. The constant threat of violence and criminalization for merely existing on our own lands must have been what our ancestors felt when Indian agents and RCMP were burning us out of our homes as late as the 50s in our area, she said in a statement. Gizdewa frowned when asked how he felt about the police enforcement. What they're doing out here, they're just doing that to bully the people here, the land protectors. It's not right. This is our own land. All 5 land defenders were released from custody and told to appear in court in July. So, we are hoping for justice for the people of unceded Wet'suwet'en territory. Why not make sure you don't miss the next video by liking, commenting, subscribing, and ringing the bell? Thank you so much for watching. It's my homie, too, Taro. Peace.